A very good morning to all of you. Welcome to today's news analysis. We are doing the Indian Express papers Chandigarh edition. Now, before starting, let me tell you, I am posting 5 MCQs based on current affairs for your practice. So, this is on the Telegram. A very good morning to all of you. Welcome to today's news analysis. We are doing the Indian Express papers Chandigarh edition. Before starting with the analysis, I would like to tell you I'm sharing current affairs based MCQs on our Telegram channel, IASPrimers. The link is there in the description box as well as in the comment section. So you can go and practice these questions on a regular basis. Now, coming to the topics that we are covering today. So, first of all, on the front page, we do not get much. Going further, we come across an article telling us about the stubble burning. That is there every day. Today, we get to know about some of the measures to deal with paddy stubble. I didn't find that adequate enough. So I have referred to another article which tells us different case studies as to how the paddy stubble can be managed. So I'll share the PDF with you on the Telegram plus discuss briefly over here as well. Okay, moving on, a very important development, that is India is hosting the Voice of Global South Summit. Okay, from pre point of view, who hosts it, what is the theme, those things are there. From mains point of view, what is India doing to be the voice of the global south? So that is one theme. Second is, what are the issues ailing the global south, the global north and global south issues? So that we will be discussing very briefly. Again, I will share with you a PDF and on the Telegram. Plus, I think I'll make a separate video on this. This time I'll make it. Okay. Then, Mr. Rajnath Singh is attending the Asian Defense Ministers Plus Summit. So AIDMM Plus Summit is going on. So again, for pre as well as mains, we will see it. Okay. The APEC Summit is going on in San Francisco, and President Xi of China and US President Biden were to meet. So the meeting has taken place. Unfortunately, it comes at the end, the international page. So the key outcomes, etc., are covered in multiple articles. So one is the explainer section, which comes first. Then here the focus is how the normalization of relations between the two and the implications for India. So that is the theme. Then there is one in editorial as well, editorial page, and then of course the world page. So yes, okay. Moving on from 7 to 10. These are editorial and opinions that we are covering. Now, one article over here, gesture politics, that is BJP gesturing towards the tribals, that was there. But what caught my eye was the author of this article was Virginius Zaza. And he has written a Zaza committee report, which is very important. So, not so much for the article, but the Zaza committee report and telling us about the issues that the tribal has, plus what steps should the government take. So that is very important, and we must read the Zaza committee report separately. You can easily get it from various UPSC related websites also. From here you can get it. Okay. Then a very interesting term is there in the news, just-in-time release of funds. So this concept we will see in the economy section. So coming to the front page, briefly, quickly covering it. You must have heard about the issue of Cyprus. So Cyprus is in the Europe, and a concern has come up that Cyprus is a tax haven, inviting people to put money into their economy, no questions asked, plus very low taxation is there. So allegations have come up that it is being used for tax evasion, money laundering, round tripping of black money, etc., etc., etc. So now the Cyprus president is saying, and that's it. Cyprus president is saying that the country's reputation is on the line because of all these allegations and they will investigate. Okay, I don't know what is there to investigate. It is the country's own policy to do this. Okay, moving on. You must have heard about the tunnel, people getting trapped in the tunnel, construction workers. So Uttarkashi tunnel, which was connecting Gangotri to Yamunotri. So people are trapped in this. Now the people outside who were trying to evacuate, they were trying to remove the debris from here, but that was not successful because when they did it, more debris from the top was falling. So now they are attempting to drill a steel pipe through the debris and through which they will evacuate the people who are trapped. As always, I would again reinstate that this topic seems to be important for ethics case study. You as a person from outside who has been tasked to evacuate people inside. So what series of steps would you take? That is the theme that I can think from exam point of view. Okay. Moving on. So see, nothing much. Okay. What do we do with this evil paddy stubble? Okay. So what steps can be taken? So we have the president of Biomass Association of Punjab, his views over here. And after this, we will discuss some of the innovative solutions dealing with stubble. Okay, so he is saying that farmers actually do not want to burn stubble, but they do not have a choice. First of all, they don't know what to do with the stubble that is remaining. Plus, the stubble has to be removed in a timely manner so that the wheat cultivation can take place, the next cycle of farming. So they don't have much choice, much options, plus no incentive as to how the stubble can be managed profitably. So thereby they tend to burn, the farmers burn it. And when they burn the stubble, it leads to loss of fertility, so thereby agricultural loss, loss of biodiversity, etc. So this is not good for the farmers, but then they do not have an option. So he's suggesting that we can learn from the Denmark's approach. So Denmark has been successful in dealing with the stubble burning issue by incorporating straw utilization technology. And the straw utilization can be done especially when converting the stubble or waste into energy. Right, so waste into energy, which can further help us in also reducing the reliance on the fossil fuels. Beyond this, I could not find much. So all we get is stubble to be converted into stubble, which is waste, to be converted into energy. Nothing more I can get. So what I understand is the stubble can be made into briquettes, small cakes or pellets. The pellets can then be burnt. Okay, now what are the eight ways by which Indians are doing it? So one approach is, this person has come up with the biofuel cycle. So compressing this stubble into high condensed carbon, of course, and then burning it. So that could be there. So they can be used for biofuel. They can be decomposed to form biofertilizers, biogas, etc. Then there is a Delhi-based engineer, Mr. Arpit. So he has developed biodegradable packaging material using stubble. So biodegradable packaging material. So material like thermocol can be prepared using the stubble. And besides, it can be also used to grow mushrooms. So both he has been able to do. Now on further reading, we come across a term known as mycelium. So it says, when the stubble is kept, so the fungus growth takes place, mycelium is fungus growth, and it forms interlocking structure, which holds the material in place. And this can be used to make thermocol. So we hear the term mycelium, and mycelium is basically fungus. Okay. Then one IAS officer in Haryana, he is using some stubble to convert it into fertilizers. Then converting stubble into small pellets, condensed pellets, which is condensed carbon in a way, and burning them. So somebody has made the stove known as agnis, so which is, you can see bengan ka bharta is being made over here with the pellets of stubble. Then converting the stubble into powder, which can be used as a fuel for boilers. So that can be there, as well as for fuel for making bricks and binding solution for making bricks. Okay. Biodegradable cups, plates, so that can be done. Then furniture also can be made from this. Okay, next we have two international related issues. So one is with UK, another with Canada. Both have a reference, both to do with diplomats, etc. So first one, UK. So Mr. Jaishankar was in the UK, and here he concluded the summit. So one issue that he raised was the Khalistani issue, right? And he wants the cooperation of UK on this matter. So the term used is violent extremism and radicalism. So that has to be managed. The other important issue is the India UK Free Trade Agreement. So, roadmap 2030 to have a free trade agreement finalized between the two nations. With Canada, what happened? So there is this High Commission of India in Canada. They were organizing a camp. Some Khalistani elements targeted this camp over here. Right. So this, of course, affected the security of the Indian diplomats in Canada. So India is saying that Canada must respect the Vienna Convention. Right. So Vienna Protocol, Vienna Convention with respect to the diplomats. So very quickly, what is the Vienna Convention now? So Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations came into being in 1961. It is the framework for diplomatic relations between independent countries. So it includes aspects like diplomatic immunity, so mainly diplomatic immunity, and the diplomats can work without fear of coercion or harassment in the host country. So it is the cornerstone of modern international relations and international law. Okay. Central Drugs Standard Control Organization is creating a new information technology platform to track medicines end to end. First of all, why? Why a portal to track the medicines, right? The drugs that are being prepared. So from procurement stage, imagine let's say, imagine paracetamol. So basically, first salts are used, salts which are known as APIs. So they are used, they are then processed, manufactured, and then ultimately it goes to the wholesaler, and then it goes to the retailer, and then eventually you buy from there. So CDSO is basically creating a tracker as to know the entire process from procurement to the retail, end to end. So tracking is to be done. Why it is doing? Because this will help create market confidence. Why? With this, what will happen is it will be easy to track what is happening, right? So tracking would take place. Sometimes we have come to know that in certain places contamination is taking place. For example, recently, I think last year it was this cough syrup that we were exporting. It was found to be contaminated, and some children died because of that unfortunate event. So that is happening. So contamination and other things happen in the process. So that may be tracked. So that can be done. Further, today there are multiple regulatory agency, multiple platforms on which the producers have to, post their content. That what is updates they have to post. So now there'll be single platform. So that will further ease. It will be making it easier for filing. We can also say it will help ease the doing of business. So that will also be good. Further, it will automate assignment of inspectors, so at a random basis, so that can be done. So better inspection and regulation can be done with that. Next article, India to host second Voice of Global South Summit today. So this will be chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the morning, today morning. Okay. So first of all, who hosted the first Voice of Global South Summit? That was also India. So it's basically an Indian initiative over here. And this was done last year. It was done on 12th to 13th January 2023. Okay. Now the theme of this year's global Voice of the Global South Summit is Together for One Future. So Together for One Future, that is the theme. And last year's theme was Unity of Voice, Unity of Purpose. Please, these are important things that can be, asked in prelims. Very, very important. Okay, so that's it. Now I think now let's focus on the mains part. So it says Voice of the Global South Summit. So the summit is basically an outreach by India towards the countries of the Global South, and India positioning itself as the leader of the Global South. Right, that is the basic agenda of this summit. So from mains point of view, first of all, what are the concerns that the Global South has? And second is, what is India doing in that regard? So, okay, where are we on this? Yes. So I came across this article. So this is the, came across this article which tells us about the challenges before Global South. A brief summary has been mentioned. So first point is, first of all, I think you should know Global North, Global South. So Global North indicates the developed economies. So this is like if you look at the map of look at the globe. So countries on the northern sides, especially the northwestern part, US, Europe, etc., they are the Global North. They are the developed economies, while Global South is around the equator, which are underdeveloped, less developed, developing economies. So what are the challenges that they are facing? So one is the great power rivalries between the developed nations, because of which the other countries are suffering. So that is one issue. For example, the Ukraine war. So Ukraine war is a struggle between, let's say, Russia and Ukraine, but it is actually Russia and NATO as well. So that is having an impact on the Global South as a whole. So that is there. Okay. Then the issues with the multilateral decision-making processes. And in all, we can also need talk about making the multilateral development institutions more representative, inclusive, to provide for greater voice of the Global South. So here we can talk about the UN reforms, the issues with the World Bank, and the World Bank also representation in the World Bank is favoring the Global North. So that is one thing. Plus, when their World Bank is providing loans, developmental loans, it is designed in such a way that it promotes enterprises from the developed economies into in the developing economies. Plus, they advocate the Western concepts or Western norms that democracy should be there, capitalist market-based operation should be there. So those are imposed on non-willing developing nations from the Global South. Okay, so UN, World Bank, WTO, yes, etc., you name it. Then third is, of course, need to reinterpret normative idioms. For example, the Global North, is using using practices like we are protecting democracy, and in that regard, they are using force. For example, US invading into, let's say, an African nation on that regard. So Global North is continuing its hegemonic practice. So that is there. On the question of democracy, human rights, etc. So question of democracy, responsibility to protect agenda for climate governance. We can keep going on and on. Now, what is this concept of R2P, or responsibility to protect? So, responsibility to protect is a global political commitment endorsed by the UNGA at the 2005 World Summit. Right. So, UNGA saying that they have the responsibility to protect whom? So, what four key concerns such as preventing genocide, war crimes, ethnic cleansing, crimes against humanity. So, on that regard, the world can have an intervention in the other country where all this is taking place. By the way, India opposes R2P, or responsibility to protect concept. India is against it because it sees this as a way of the developed nations or the global north to intervene unduly in the domestic affairs. And then again, agenda for climate governance, again, developed nations telling developing economies that you focus on sustainability, environment, and this may come at the economic growth, so which is not acceptable. Developed countries are the ones that are actually responsible for today's problems, but now they are putting the burden on the developing economies. And at the same time, the developed nations are not providing the aid, the technological aid, funding, finance, etc., to the developing nations, but telling them what needs to be done. Okay, WTO also, we can say that developing nations to remove subsidies to protect their economy in favor of free trade. So that is also being done. I want to make a video on this using the same points, maybe elaborating a bit more, so that can be done. Then, next article. The Defense Minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, stresses on unimpeded lawful commerce in international waters. This is, of course, a statement concerning the South China Sea and targeting China. Okay. So where did this summit, where did Rajnath Singh say this? So this, he said in his address in the 10th ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting Plus. So ADMM Summit. Now what is this ADMM Summit? ADMM Summit, the members are 10 Asian countries, so they have to be there, plus 8 dialogue partners. And these include, this is important for your prelims, India, China, Australia, Japan, New Zealand, Republic of Korea, it is South Korea, Russia and US. For you, you should keep in mind India and China are members of this. These countries are members. Okay, so you know about ADMM also now, ADMM plus. Next, the aspect of lawful commerce in international waters. So he's referring to the lawful commerce, right? Lawful. So United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea has to be respected. And this law is basically the global law as to how international waters are to be governed. So that this is the governance framework for international waters, right? And this is eyeing towards China because China claims the entire South China Sea as its own, and it's affecting the rights of the neighboring countries, which is the Asian countries. So that is one aspect. Further, he said that the regional security initiatives in this region should be consultative and development oriented, right? So security should be there, but at the same time, development focus should also be there. Now, in this light, we must recall Prime Minister Modi's call for initiative known as Sagar, which is security and growth for all in the region. Security as well as growth. So that is the same thing as consultative and development oriented approach. So this region that we are talking about is Indian Ocean region, but this concept can be extended to the Indo-Pacific region as well. Moving on, we now talk about the meeting that took place between President Xi of China and President Biden of USA. So what were the key takeaways and what are the concerns as to India? So first of all, where did this meeting take place? This meeting took place in San Francisco, USA, at the APEC summit. right? APEC meeting. Yesterday we talked that APEC, we should know, like for example, Seoul Declaration, etc. Okay, and you must know one more thing, India is not a member of APEC. Now moving on. The US and China have had strained relationships. In fact, President Biden and Xi have not met since about a year, and they have had a strained relationship on number of matters because of the allegations of Chinese spying over the US. There was also a spy balloon that was spotted in US by China. Then allegation of Chinese hacking US president's phone, so that came to light. And then at the same time, the US putting restrictions on China with reference to the trade, so trade barriers being created, as well as sharing of technology with the Chinese companies. So some restrictions were imposed by the US side as well. In fact, this pushed the US based MNCs to come up with the strategy known as China plus one strategy. That is, they already have business in China, which is very difficult to move out of, but at the same time looking at an alternative arrangement. So this China plus one, which could be India, Vietnam, any other country, but not China. Okay, so we discussed briefly the issues. Number of more issues are there actually. So now what were the expectations from the talk? The US wants to establish guardrails. Guardrails are fences. You know, when you drive through the highways, you would have seen this. So these are guardrails. So some sort of fences, some sort of red lines, sometimes some sort of a framework as to how US, what are the key things that China must not do with respect to the US, what US will not do. So create a guardrail. So that has to be done. So US says that yes, we can continue with the Biden administration, that with restrictions and everything, we can compete with China, but at the same time, we must engage with China as well. So both should be there, which is very much required. So US wants to raise guardrails, so that is there, and at the same time, US is continuing the program called then Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, right? So they're working on this at the same time. On the Chinese side, the Chinese want US to remove restrictions on trade, technology, as well as restrictions on the corporates. Corporates are not being encouraged today to invest in China. So that is it. So US wants China wants US to give these relaxations. Okay. Now, what may have prompted the Chinese Xi to come to US probably was that these restrictions were putting a impact on the Chinese economy. At the same time, where the domestic business in China is going through a bit of a slump. Okay, so what we hear, obviously publicly we don't know, but what we hear is that US will continue to do with all this, but it has been able to get concessions from China. So very little giveaways. US has compromised very little, but getting much more in return. Now, what is there for India in this regard? First of all, what is there for the world as a whole? So first, as a whole, for the world, US and China are the two superpowers, right? I think Russia is now a bit behind now. So two superpowers. And with management of the global affairs, like let's say the Ukraine-Russia war, the climate governance, WTO or UNSC, whichever way, the cooperation of the both countries are required, including AI. Right? So that is very much required to have stable global governance. So that is one thing. Now coming to the India in the recent times have been hedging against China and moving towards US. The tilt is very clear. The US has been going by the concept of pivot to Asia. That is, it wants a presence towards the Chinese side. Previously, it was towards the West Asia, because the focus was on oil. But since the discovery of oil and the shale in the US, it is moving towards China. So pivot to Asia. So that is there. So for India, if US and China relations normalizes, the trust goes away, then in that case, India's positioning gets weaker, because today US and India relations are going strong because they feel that India is a good counter to China. India is a good counter to China. No other country has that sort of a weight which can manage China. So that is there. So US wants to empower India in that regard. But if relations normalizes, of course, there has to be a rethink on India's participation in Quad, IPEF, etc., etc. So that is the concern. So that's it. Next, we hear about adultery. Last time we heard it was in 2021, 2022 April, some around that time. So why are we talking about adultery at the moment? Adultery, as we know, in 2018, this was declared as unconstitutional. It was struck down by the Supreme Court in the Joseph Shine versus Union of India case. So adultery, what is adultery now? So it says, here the definition is mentioned. A person who has sexual intercourse with another person who he believes to be the wife of another person. Right? So male, female, and female he believes who may be a wife of another person. So in that case, it will not amount to rape, but it will amount to adultery. And the wife shall not be liable in that regard. The female partner shall not be liable. So this adultery was provided for in IPC section 497. So that was there, 497. Okay. So the Supreme Court struck down this. Now the Parliament's committee, a parliamentarian committee, has said that we need to reintroduce the law on adultery because adultery will protect the marriage, institution of marriage, which is a very sacred lot of in India, a lot of sanctity is there to the institution of marriage. So this will be introduced, but by making it gender neutral. So earlier wife is not liable, so make wife liable, make the female liable. So that is the thing. Okay. Now what the article is saying is that there is a problem with this viewpoint. When Supreme Court struck down adultery, it was not merely on the grounds that adultery was not gender neutral. The law of adultery was unequal on multiple counts. It was violative of Article 14, 15, and 21. And the main thing was that the law 497 IPC saw women as a property of the man. For example, if you read this again, it will say a person having affair with the another person who may be a wife of another person. So without the consent of or connivance of that man, of the husband of the wife. So if that happens, so again, it is seeing the wife as the property of the husband. So it is affecting the human dignity of the wife, plus it is affecting the autonomy of women. So that is one thing. Further, one may also say it is violative of the right to privacy, because if you start investigating adultery, you're getting into the domain of privacy also. So that was the thing, right? So that's it on adultery. It's basically a brief update on this issue. Personally, do not expect, if you look at the previous year mains paper, you do not expect question on this, but still we must prepare for something we do not expect. Okay, editorial on the Z and Biden meeting. I'm not doing it. I think we are extending the time also, but the same things are repeated over here. Moving. So we have an article from Virginis Zaza, and I told you previously that he was the author. He has this committee known as Zaza Committee Report, where he highlights the issues with the tribals, plus what actions the state must take. So thereby I'm reading this, otherwise I would have just ignored this because of this. BJP is selective in its approach to scheduled tribes. Anyways, so let's do now what the author is saying over here. So the background of this article is, of course, the elections. The Prime Minister Modi's outreach to the tribals, especially in this Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand region, and the announcement of the scheme known as PM Janjati Adivasi Nyay Maha Abhiyan. And what was the scheme? This was a scheme to create basic communities for the tribal population. 24,000 crores are to be allocated. Time period is not stated. Okay. Now he says that this approach to the scheduled tribes is there, fine, it's good, but at the same time it skirts critical questions of tribal language, religion, and land. So we'll see from here itself one by one. So when it comes to tribal language, the BJP, the party is silent. So they see it in the form of Hindi only. While if you look at the tribal identity, tribals identify themselves more with the language than any other factor, not even religion. But the focus on Hindi and introduction of Hindi and spreading Hindi is affecting the tribal languages and thereby their identity and the culture. So that is point number one, which they are silent about. Second is religion. Tribals have a very diverse religious space, the way they worship gods, deities, etc. So which may be indifferent from the Hindu religion. So this is very diverse. But that is seen by the politics. It is seen as a version of Hindu. It is delineated as Hindu. It's marked as Hindu, except for those tribes which are from Christians and Muslims. Further, this point seems important. Land. If you look at the policies of the government, and any government for that matter, plus of course BJP now for 10 years, land is very much required. Forest land, plus these lands also have mines, etc. So BJP has brought in laws like the Land Acquisition Act in 2013, which was later taken away. Then amendments to the Forest Conservation Act. So all of this affects the tribal land. Dilution of the Forest Rights Act, which again provides for land rights of the tribals. So to bring in developmental projects, so these land acquisition laws are there, but we see that where these projects are there, the quality of the lives of the tribals are undermined like anything. So that the tribals tend to be living lives, they are marginalized, plus they go below poverty line. So which is not good. Okay, next, more to India's power. You know why we are covering this today? Because I feel that this topic is more like an essay. So you can see how an essay may be drafted, so that you can see. Plus, this is like the topic for the dreams that should not let you sleep or should not let India sleep. So there's such topics, So this seems very interesting on those lines over here. So here, what the author is simply saying is, in fact, why don't you take a screenshot, read for yourself? Right. So he's basically saying India is developing, and India is also emerging as a great soft power when it refers to the sports, hosting of the G20, then the role of the India's film industry, plus the Oscar nomination for Natu Natu song, the International Yoga Day, right? So all those things, India is emerging as a soft power. So that was another thing. Now, what is soft power? How is it different from hard power? So soft power is the ability to co-opt rather than coerce. Coerce is hard power. For example, US is a hard power. Russia is a hard power. While India is a soft power. You can take the case of Afghanistan, where US was using force against Taliban, while India was using soft power, creation of the parliamentary building, creation of the Selma dams, all those things. Okay. Her knock on closed doors. This is about the domestic violence provisions and the apathy of the criminal justice system. Okay. So very quickly, so you can imagine women and women's interaction with the criminal justice system, which includes the law, the police, and the courts. Okay. So, and by the way, the context is the recent ruling in the Arnesh Kumar versus State of Bihar, in which women had approached with respect to the domestic violence, and the court took a strong note and made a remark on that the laws are being misused by the women. So that is the context. So what are the issues being faced by the women? So first of all, the crimes against women are increasing, specifically with respect to domestic violence. Now, what are the provisions What are the laws? So we have section 498A of the IPC. So that is there. 498 of the IPC is there. Then articles 319 to 338. So 498, 319 to 338. So these IPCs are there. Plus we have the Domestic Violence Act that is also there. Okay, so the laws are there. Women can file the FIR. Action will take place against the in-laws. But when the woman goes to the police station, or the FIRs are turned down. The police tend to focus on counseling, right? And they are reluctant on signing and registering the FIRs. The author says that this is because of the patriarchal mindset over here. But I think sometimes, then it will be my mindset also. Okay, fine. This is the mindset that the author is stating over here. Right? They turn down the FIR, they say counseling because it will affect the marriage and all those things. So that is there. Now, let's say police even files the FIR and the actual case starts. So we see that courts, many times, they make remarks which are demeaning of the women who go to the court. So this is a discouragement to the women in filing cases. And it has given the case of Arnesh Kumar versus State of Bihar, which is a very recent case. Okay, so the bulk of the news we have done. Now moving to the international and the economy section. So UNSC adopts resolution calling for pauses in Gaza. I think this is clear. Right? There will be small window when the violence is not taking place by Israel to Gaza. So UNSC has adopted resolution. This resolution was sponsored by Malta. Now, where is Malta located? So this is the map of Europe, Mediterranean Sea. Somewhere here, Malta is located. So they brought in the resolution. So that's it. Biden meeting took place. They agreed to resume military contact, set up hotline. So military to military talks that will take place. Okay, this one news I have missed somewhere in the earlier part, but I'll combine with this. In Myanmar, you can imagine this northeast map. Okay, so this is northeast of India. This is Myanmar. So what is happening in Myanmar? There is this Janta government. There is this military dictatorship that is going on. They have, there was a coup that took place and they overthrew democratic government. Now, specifically around the Myanmar border, India-Myanmar border, Janta, the military government or military and the anti-Janta group, they are protesting. There is a violence going on between the two. And because of this, refugees from Myanmar are entering into Mizoram. They're entering into Mizoram. So that is happening. So that's why the map is there, but it somewhere missed it. Now this article is basically talking about situation is not very good in Myanmar. So it orders civil servants, ex-military to prepare for emergencies. Okay. Not yet summer, but dangerous heat wave is sweeping Brazil. Now, why are we talking? Isn't it cold in North India? So Brazil is in southern hemisphere. So while here we may have start of winter, they'll be having the start of summers, and it is already very hot. Again, this is an indication of the climate change, indication of things to come in the future. More needs to be done to deal with the issue of climate change. Economy section. I think this was 82. Okay, so this has gone up. I think both of them have gone up, US as well as the Australia or the oil rate. Okay, quickly. RBI's report has come, which says that unsecured credit increases. RBI thereby tightens norms on personal loans, credit cards. So what are unsecured credit? So one is the secured credit. Let's say you buy a car. So you have a car in your possession. Plus you get money. So money is against the car. Right, so that is a secured loan. Or when you borrow something, you put something as a collateral. That if you are not able to pay back, then the bank can take my property or something else. That is a secured loan. So unsecured loan is when there is no collateral. So there is a concern that, let's say, the borrower is not able to pay, right, make payments. So in that case, the bank is the net loser. So this is not a good thing for the banking sector. So RBI is tightening norms on this. Tightening norms specifically on personal loans as well as credit cards. Credit cards, again, when you use your credit card, so there is no collateral as such. So this is not a good sign for the banking sector. So growth in retail credit has been close to 30%, and unsecured retail credit has grown by 23%. This is not a good thing. Moving on to the inflation, RBI on inflation. So RBI in its recently released report known as State of Economy. So in there it has said that economy is doing great, festival demand is up, so consumer sentiment is upbeat, but at the same time there remains concerns over inflation and the supply side shocks. So that is there. So that's it actually. And it also says investment demand appears to be resilient because of the government spending on infrastructure projects. India and European Union is close to settling $600 million WTO dispute. So first of all, what is this dispute? So this dispute started in 2019 when India decided to increase tariffs on imports of electronic goods. Right. So India, electronic goods that are coming to the country. So India decided to increase tariffs on them. So obviously, when exports are coming from European Union or any other country, they are being disadvantaged. So the European Union went to the WTO complaining about this. Okay, so first of all, why did India increase the tariffs? So India increased because, of course, they are losing out on, more imports are coming. Plus, it is India wants to promote the domestic manufacturing of electronics through the phased manufacturing program. If you have studied, I don't know. So phased manufacturing plan is there for promoting electronics manufacturing. That is one of the things. Okay, so that was there. So EU has gone to the WTO that India is engaging in unfair trade practices. Okay, so India is also saying, okay, fine, you people have also brought us trouble by increasing your tariffs when we are exporting. For example, when we are exporting steel, you have increased your tariffs because you want to protect your domestic industry. Right. So some sort of talks are going on between the two so that the dispute can be resolved. Okay, $600 million is also a huge amount to pay, right? So that is also there. Next, just-in-time release of central funds soon move to reduce borrowings. Okay, so you see, center, first of all, okay, first of all, let me tell you what is happening. So governments, central government specifically, announces this centrally sponsored schemes, right? Like Narega, etc., Narega, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, all those things are centrally sponsored scheme in which the center and states contribute funds. The states contribute 40% of the funds. Typically, center contributes 60% of the funds. Okay, so imagine Narega or Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, whichever scheme. Awas is housing. Okay, so center, what they do is they put a lump sum amount of money or they float funds. So they keep lump sum amount of money in the open, in an account, floats. The states, when they have to implement, the states are the one that are implementing. So they go approach the implementing agency and they give them money 40%. So when they have to do it, they release money and they take money from this floating fund, 60%. And the thing is done. Okay, so that's simple. Whichever state, how much ever they want, they, according to the percentage, they take. Okay, so that flexibility is there. They don't have to go to the center every time. But what is happening is that center does not have money. They borrow money. So when they borrow money, they have to pay interest on it. Now, if the floating amount is there for a longer period, they have to pay interest on a longer time duration. And it so happens that over the years, because of the excessive borrowings, now the interest payment is a significant amount. So at the time, it is nearly half of its tax revenues. Imagine half of taxes that it gets is going towards interest payments. Imagine. And this is rupees 1.5 to 2 trillion, or 1.5 to 2 lakh crore of rupees. That much money is going. So if the center can limit this, the time duration for which it is borrowing, then in that case, interest payments will come down. So it basically says that the center as well as the states are required to have an account. So when required, they can take money from that account. So